Hey, this is Mick Holly, and welcome to this week's show of Welcome to Grow Your Business by the Numbers, where I help you grow your revenues, amplify your profits, and generate predictable and healthy cash flows. So, this week, very excited to be talking about cold calling. Maybe you're not so excited about that topic. And why have I picked this topic? Well, a lot of people tell me they don't want to make cold calls. They're very afraid of making cold calls. That cold calls aren't effective anymore. Cold calls as part of the old world. Don't we just do everything by social media now? We lie on couches surrounded by people in togas feeding us grapes, and calls come in to us, of course. Well, that's not quite the reality. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to debunk some of the myths around cold calling and give you some techniques on how you can embrace those sometimes icy embraces, right? It's called a cold call for a reason because it is icy cold. Well, let's first of all define what we mean by cold call. Two words, cold and call. All right. So here's my definition. It's attempting to make a customer of someone who is not anticipating your call. So by its nature, you are interrupting their day. And they're usually very busy and often hostile or unfriendly because they don't know you. And so it can be very scary indeed. And I go back to my own, way back in the early 80s. I got a job as a salesman, as a pharmaceutical medical rep. And I would have to go around doctors' surgeries and, sell my products, detail my products. And I remember the first week that I was on the job, I was in a county called Hampshire, in a little village called Four Marks. And there was a surgery there, doctor's surgery. I think there were 3 or 4 doctors in this practice. And I'd never called on them before. I didn't have an appointment, and I'm sitting there in a 1983 Ford Cortina. I even remember the registration, WPK781Y. It's amazing the kind of things that you remember. But I'm sitting there in my blue Ford Cortina. I've got my tie and I'm appropriately dressed. I've got my briefcase with all of my brochures in, and I have to tell you, I was absolutely terrified to go in there. I must have sat out there half an hour trying to give myself the courage to go in and knock on the door, because I was fearful of being rejected, of looking stupid in front of these very learned people who'd taken, more than a decade to learn their profession. And here's me, some junior sales rep with, a few weeks of training on these 3 pharmaceutical products. And I'm going to try and convince them that I know about the disease condition and how they should prescribe it. Wow. Yeah. That week was the only week, I think, in my life that I probably lost weight, although I have done a few pounds lately because of my swimming. So a call doesn't necessarily mean a phone call. It could be a personal visit. It could be you walking to somebody in an exhibition. It could be you're approaching somebody in Starbucks. But the fact that it's cold, they either have never spoken to you before, or they've completely forgotten about you. Or I have this, right? I'm sure you get this. You've been running sales campaigns and your prospect goes radio silent on you. Gives you the cold shoulder, and they're very, very icy. And the next time you get through to them, it's like they've never spoken to you. You've completely been erased from their memory. So you've got to start all over again. So that's what a cold call is. You're starting anew, fresh with somebody. You've interrupted their time, right? So you've got to get down to the detail pretty quickly. So why should we do cold calls? Well, the first thing is Salesforce have done studies, and they've worked out that the cost of having somebody make a telephone call, sitting in the office paying a salary, is about $33 per call. And to actually send somebody out in the field, like I was doing as a medical rep, or somebody out on the field making a call, costs $276. Now, that $33 is probably down to the fact that people don't make very many calls. And if you really get good at cold calls, you spit them out. You can do hundreds of sales calls in a day, and that $33 would come down to a very meager amount indeed. So it's really, really, really cost effective to do cold calls. It's just your time, and the more calls you do, the more results per time effort. Number two, it saves you time. If you're going to get into a truck, into your car, and drive halfway across the city to meet somebody, it might take you an hour in traffic, hour there, hour back, couple of hours. And you could have made 20, 30, 40 calls in that time. And if you're going to get on a plane and meet somebody in another city, the costs are astronomical, and the time element is very, very long. And here's number three. It pierces obscurity. Up until that point, they don't know you. People can't buy from you if they don't know you. So it elevates you to somebody at least who's on their radar, and it's a way of getting to the decision maker. And the last point is it initiates the sales cycle. You become proactive. I've often said that my phrase is win first, fight later. If you can get your sales cycle started before anybody else, you have an edge. And most sales are won in the discovery, right? So the earlier you get involved and start building that relationship, the higher the probability there is of you getting there. So cold calls are critically important. And then the last thing that I would say is that cold calls build courage, right? Because, you go through it a few times and you get a little streetwise, you get a little bit savvy, you become a bit more relaxed, you start having fun, and you believe in your product. You know how those calls are going to go. You build a little repertoire. You've got an edge. You've got some street cred, and those calls now bolster your confidence because you know how to answer the objections. In fact, you know what objections are going to come up, and you preempt them. So it becomes a way of emboldening you. If you want to be a better salesperson, right, you need to be doing cold calls, because that's the true art. And if you want business, if you want new business, you've got to be making cold calls. Everybody makes cold calls. You might be saying, oh, well, we don't make cold calls. I've talked to companies where they say, oh, we don't do any cold calling. Oh, no. Oh, that's beneath us. We don't do cold calls. Well, how do you get new business? I mean, you tell me that you don't do cold calls, I'll show you a shrinking business. Yeah. You can post on social media, and if you go on bid boards, you can solicit work. But you've still got to make the initial introduction to the general contractor to say, hey, here's who we are, here's what we stand for, here are the kind of projects that we do, in order to solicit those bids and have those conversations. And anyway, as I've talked before, if you're just on competitive bid boards, right, you're going to get low margin work, highly competitive all the time. Whereas when you cold call somebody who really, really wants your service, values your service, you can charge much higher margins and get higher profitable work. So cold calling leads to higher margin work. And everybody, you did a cold call, when you went. I remember meeting my wife for the first time at a garden party. I saw her in the party, and every time I tried to talk to her, she was either talking to somebody else or she went into a different room, and we never really got the opportunity to have a conversation. I thought, wow, I really like this. I really want to go out with this girl. So I spoke to my friend whose garden party it was, and her name was Lynn. I said, hey, Lynn, what's that? Oh, that's Kim. Oh, do you think I could get her phone number? She looked at me. She goes, you're not going to mess her about, Mick, are you? I said, no. I'm going to be a true gentleman. And so I got the telephone number, and I called her out of the blue. That was a cold call. I said, hey, This is Mick Holly. You don't know me, but we were at Lynn's party, and you try and get in, put a little hook in there, get a conversation going, and we went on a date, another date, and here we are, 30, 31. 31 years of marriage now. So there you go. Everybody makes cold calls. Whatever you want, you're going to approach somebody at some point to get over an idea, or you got to convince them of something. Somebody you don't know, that you haven't met, or you haven't talked to for a long time. So get out of it. Get out of that phrase of saying, I don't make cold calls. My business doesn't make cold calls. Yes, you do, and you need to. So let's move on after that rant. So why don't we why don't we make cold calls, right? Most people want to believe, but there's a better way, right? There's a better way to do it. What about advertising? Well, advertising is a good way to spend your money, but it doesn't give you the returns that cold calling does. Cold calling gives you a 6 times higher return than ad spend or mail campaigns. Just let that sink in. 6 times return. So you can either spend 6 times more money, or you can invest a little bit of time. And that time, as I've told you, builds your skills, builds your boldness, builds your value proposition, and makes you very, very compelling when you've done it, a number of times. But people don't value their time. They would rather drive around, for a couple of hours to try and have a meeting with somebody at lunch than pick up the phone and make 20 cold calls. Well, how can you? The cold call is a vehicle for you to multiply your impact in the marketplace. You can pick up that phone and make lots and lots and lots of calls. All you need is a phone number. You just call, just do it. But often we were brought up not to talk to strangers. You were told that by your parents, weren't you? Don't speak to strangers. Well, let me tell you something. You know who's got your money? Strangers have your money. People that you've not spoken to before have your money. And if you want money and you want sales and you want them to buy your services, you've actually got to introduce yourself to them by cold calling. There you go. So you do need to talk to strangers. And then you've got somebody in your organization, or somebody said to you one time, oh, cold calling doesn't work. Well, go back to that person who told you that. And you may never have even met that person. It's just something that's formed in your head. Go to that person and have a look at their pay stub. Go and show me your earnings for the year. And those persons who said cold calls doesn't work isn't earning a lot of money, right? They just don't like doing cold calls. And the fact is, most people don't like doing cold calls. I didn't like doing cold calls. But now, of late, I'm calling you lot, I've been making a lot of cold calls. And you know what? I'm getting pretty good at it. And I don't fear it anymore. And I get my list and I just rattle through it, and I don't fear it. I actually enjoy it. It's fun. So you got to get to that state. And cold calling does work. It's imperative that you do it. But the biggest issue is we fear rejection. Oh, they're going to be horrible to me. They're going to put the phone down. They're going to shout at me. They're going to tell me I'm worthless. All right. So rejection. See this big red bar down here? Rejection is an indication of a weak or broken pipeline. It's worthwhile taking a moment to digest this point. Because you're thinking, rejection, I hate being rejected. Well, get over it. You're in sales, right? 90%, 80% of the people are going to say no at some point. You have to move past no. The road to yes is paved with no's. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of rejection. We're on planet Earth. We don't get our way all the time. You get told no all the time. You get told no by your spouse. You get told no by your kids. No, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not doing that. Your friends say, no, I don't want to do this. You get no. You get no's all the time. Your nose doesn't go out of joint and you retreat into your little, cubby hole and mope, do you? No, because you deal with it. But in sales, the reason you get so upset about rejection is you don't have enough prospects in your pipeline. You're so reliant on that one interaction that when you get a no, it's a death blow. So you've got to get more. You've got to get more in your pipeline, so it insulates you from that feeling of rejection. Rejection is a symptom of a poor, broken, or empty pipeline. So if you're feeling rejection, take a look at your pipeline and realize you're not working hard enough, or you're not working smart enough, and you need to make some cold calls and get some new prospects and push them in, so you make your pipeline much bigger, much fatter, and it's brimmer. I don't care if somebody says no. I just move on to the next one. I got plenty in my pipeline. I got plenty of prospects. I've got a big list. I can go through all of these people. Somebody's going to buy from me, right? So that's those are the fears. So rejection is the biggest one, and it's just a myth. It's just a function of empty pipeline syndrome, EPS. If you got rejection, you've got EPS, empty pipeline syndrome. Okay. So that's about rejection. Just dismiss that thought. If you've got it, take a look at your pipeline and ask yourself some honest questions. So here's some stats that may or may not warm the cockles of your heart. 92% of transactions occur by phone. So you might as well be on there getting your share of those transactions. The average American makes 8 calls per day. Average American, that's 3,000 a year, which makes 3 billion calls per day. 3 billion calls are going on, and not all of them are to friends and family. Some of those are cold calls. And I make more than 8 calls a day. I'm sure you make more than 8 calls a day. But if all you're talking to is your friends and family, you ain't going to get rich that way. You need to be talking to the strangers. You need to be talking to the cold call. Those are the phone calls that are going to make you rich and going to build your wealth and your confidence. Now, here's something that might make you feel a little bit better. At first blush, you might not, right? 85% of people say they're dissatisfied with their phone experience when they're in some kind of buying process. And that's a function of very badly prepared people making calls and not having a good process and not handling the call well. They go into the call unprepared. They don't know what they want. They meander around. The prospect's confused. You're confused. It's a terrible experience. But here's the thing. It doesn't take much for you to stand out, because 85% of the time, people are dissatisfied. So if you're just a little bit prepared, a little bit polished, have a stepwise process so you know where you are, right? You are going to be head and shoulders. So you've got to be you've got to be really, really prepared. Bad cold calls are because you are unprepared and you don't know what to do. And I'm going to tell you what to do in a minute. And 92. Here's an interesting one. But I called them yesterday. I called them last week. 92% of buyers were surveyed, and they were asked whether they could remember a message from prospectors who'd called them in the last 2 years. And 92% said they couldn't remember. They don't remember. You come through, they're busy. They've got 10 things going on at once, and boom, you could call the next day. They don't even remember that you called you the day before or last week. They don't remember what you talked about until you cut through that obscurity. If you cut through that fog of noise, that attention, right, and really get to engage with them, are you going to stand out and they're going to start, and you're going to start to be memorable. We want to be memorable on our calls. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the four how to handle a cold call. And I've broken it down into what I call the 4 B's of business boom. How do you make a boom? How do you make an impact? Right? Because you're competing with all this noise. You need to make some noise. You need to create some attention. You want that interrupt. You want that pattern interrupt. So they go, what's this lady talking about? What's this guy talking about? Right? You need pattern interruption, because you're getting in the day and you create a little moment. Then you drive your script through there. You drive your cold call routine in there. All right. So the 4 B's are belief, bold claim, brevity, and what I call bulking. All right, so let's go through each one of those in turn. So belief. People think confidence and belief comes from, I made a lot of sales, so I believe in my capability. I'm now really, really good, so I can make more sales. No. If you really believe, it's belief, it comes before sales. If you really believe in your product and that your service can make a big difference for the client, right? And you're going to go that extra mile, and you've got a purpose, right? When they say no, you don't hear no, you just hear, I haven't really gotten through to you, or now maybe not the right time. And you're going to probe and you're going to dig because you're so convinced that your product or service is going to have a profound impact on their business performance or their personal career or their lives, that you just keep on going. You believe intrinsically. Now, if you don't believe in your product or your service, yeah, you might sell a few things, but you're never going to be a rainmaker. So if you don't believe, you've got a bit of a problem. So belief is built by really imbibing yourself with the success stories of your company and your previous, sales, talking to people about the company, the product, the service, the impact that it's made. Talk to your past customers, really imbibe that success so you can internalize it and put it into your belief system so you can convey that, with real conviction. So belief precedes sales. And then it doesn't really matter if you have a lean period and your sales go down, your belief, your conviction is not tied to the market. You always go to the market with 100% belief. So you go the extra mile every time, which is what it takes to be a rainmaker. So we'll move on to the second B. The second B is you need to have a bold claim. You remember, we are we're interrupting somebody's day. They're in between meetings. They might be in a meeting, and you've interrupted them. And if you don't have a bold claim, you're just going to sound blah, right? You need some kind of hook to pull them in, so that you can then have just a couple of minutes. Now, you're not trying to close the deal, make the whole sale in that cold call. That doesn't happen very often. We should have a mindset that we're on a one call close. We have to have the mindset that we're going to win. But practically speaking, you want to engineer a next step, another conversation, a meeting, an appointment, something in the schedule where they get it, written down, and you've got a joint commitment to explore the next step. So you need a bold claim. So think about your business and your product, and be really bold about what it is that you offer. The next B is you need to have brevity, right? You've only got a few seconds to engage with this person. So don't give them the whole history of your company and all of the background. They just need to know. Don't even give them your full name. They don't have time. They won't remember your name anyway. So just say, hey, this is Mick. The reason I'm calling is we've worked with companies like yours to generate 30% increase in revenue in the next 90 days. Do you have a few minutes to talk to me? Right? That's a bold claim, 30% revenue increase in 90 days. Right? Whatever your bold claim is, get it out there. And the person goes, oh, that's a bit bold. Yeah, I'm interested. Can they substantiate that fact? And then you need to ask questions, because you're not going to sell anything. All products and services solve a problem. If you don't have a problem, you can't make a sale. So you want to ask some questions that will draw out the problem. And you might have some pre-prepared questions based on your market. So I might say, hi, this is Mick. The reason I'm calling is I can help you increase your revenues by 30% in the next 90 days. And I saw that you were advertising for a sales manager on LinkedIn. So you're clearly driving sales. So would some sales productivity and sales excellence be of interest to you? And let the prospect talk to you, right? And say, well, actually, yes, the reason we need a salesman is we've got 4 or 5 green salespeople, and they're not really making their numbers, so we need somebody to husband them through that process. And you go, well, what a surprise! I'm a sales coach. You don't have to spend $150,000 hiring a sales manager who, by the way, may not be very good and may leave in a year. So you lose a year and $150,000. And you can hire me, for much less money. And I've got the credentials to help drive the performance. And you can fire me anytime. You don't have to give me help benefits or anything like that. And I know what I'm doing, because I help people grow their revenue by 30% in 90 days. Wow. So I know I've interrupted you. I know we didn't have much time today. I appreciate the conversation. Could we get an appointment in the calendar where we can talk about how I can help you get these salespeople to the next level of performance? Can you get your calendar out? And you wait, you get the calendar out. Don't leave that call without getting a date, because you know what it's like when you say, oh yeah, call me next Tuesday. That's not an appointment, right? You want to get, okay, next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Let me send you an invite now. I'm going to send it to your phone, or I'm going to send it to your calendar. What's your email address? What's your text? Let me text you that. So now you're getting their mobile number, you're getting their email, you're sending the invite. Could you see the invite? Can you click on it? Is that time good? Yeah, I got it. Is there, and then cement it. Is there any reason that you might not be able to make, other than a natural disaster, that you might not be able to make that time? And then they double check and they go, well, actually, I've got another meeting that's before that. It tends to run on. Okay, let's get a different time. So you really, really need to anchor that appointment in. Brevity. See, just took a few seconds. Hi, this is Mick. Reason I'm calling is I can help you increase revenue by 30% in 90 days. And I saw that you were looking for a new sales manager. Are you looking to upgrade your sales capability? Find the problem, solve the problem, set an appointment. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay, brevity. Now, in order to get to brevity, you've got to be rehearsed. You've got to know where you are in the process. See, I've got an introduction, short. It's not Mick Holly from Business by the Numbers. They're not going to remember all that. They might just remember one name. It's Mick. I don't know you, but Mick. Okay, Mick. I got Mick, right? A reason for calling, right? And then you close. Now, what the fourth B is what I call bulking, right? Got Arnie here, right? He's got his flex. I've got some flex. Let's get the full camera on my flex here. I've been swimming. And it doesn't. You don't use your biceps in swimming, so I'm getting no shout. I'm getting a little bit more. I'm getting a little bit more up here, but the biceps are going. But I'm not bulking up enough up here. I've got to do some weights. All right, I've got to get in the gym. Now, why do I need to go to the gym? Because I want to have, I want to get some muscle in there. Now, if I go to the gym, I can't say, oh, I don't need to go to the gym. I did biceps last year. I did a biceps course. No, you've got to go on the bench 3 times a week and do and curl to get those biceps like Arnie. You can't not do it. It's like sales. They'll tell me, oh yeah, we did a sales course in just before COVID. It was really good. We had a Zoom meeting on it. Yeah, it was really good. I've been trained. No, you've got some theory, but you haven't built it into your muscle memory. You haven't bulked it. You haven't practiced. Daily practice. Pump it. You've got to pump your sales muscle. All right. Let's go back to my little chart there. So how do we pump the muscle? Well, first of all, here's how you do it. Right. First of all, you write out your script. And I've told you what the script is, very short script, right, with your bold claim in it. And then what you need to do is you need to memorize that script so that you've got the script and you've got a process. So you, in any point in a sales meeting, well, I've got my main claim out there. Have I identified a problem? Yes. Move on to, getting a little bit more information around the problem, close on the appointment. You've got some very simple steps to follow every time. You've got a roadmap. You know where you are. If you don't have a map, you don't know where you are. You don't know if you're making progress in the sale, and you can't move to step 3 without step 2, right? So you've got to get a problem before you can start advocating that you can solve it, right? So simple steps. So we need a script. We need a script that we memorize. Now, I released a podcast on my Sell the Sizzle podcast. You can find it at sellthesizzle.net or search for Sell the Sizzle on any of your popular podcast platforms. And this week's episode was all about, do you have a sales skill or a sales spiel? A spiel is very superficial. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't engage. It doesn't, it feels oily, right? It's hammer, 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 hammer. You're reading a script. And here I'm telling you to have a script that you memorize. But that's not the only part. You need to memorize it and now get it out of your conscious mind and put it into the supercomputer that is your subconscious mind, which is where skill resides. But I need to do some reps. I need to do some conscious reps in order to imprint that program in my subconscious. So I want you to memorize the script, and then I want you to sit in front of a mirror and, recite that script so that you can see yourself. You can see when you say things. Do I look as though I believe that? Did I say that with conviction? Was my bold claim? Did I come over as being bold? And get that in the mirror so that you can do that a few times. And then in order really to get it imprinted in the subconscious, you've got to role play with other people in your organization or other people, that you, even customers, past customers. Hey, do you mind? Could you pretend to be, a new customer and help me through this and give me some objections, whatever objections you think, you throw those at me. And as you're in that, it's a very different feeling. So we've gone from, reciting the words and looking at ourselves to now having an experience, and the feelings of what the emotions when you role play are really what cements that skill in you so that you have that capability that's repeatable. And if it's repeatable, right, and you've got a process, you can make it consistent. And if you're consistent with your cold calls, you will win in the marketplace. So key ideas there. I think I'm coming to the so ultimately, at the end of the day, make those cold calls. Now, here's another thought for you. If you've got new employees coming into your business, do the orientation, tell them what you do, show them the brochure, right? And then say, okay, here's 100 people. You go and talk to them and tell them what we do, right? And very, very quickly, they're gonna work out what it is that you do, and it's going to be imprinted on them more powerfully than you sitting in a room with a set of PowerPoints saying, these are our values, this is how long we've been in business, blah, 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 right? And they're listening, but they're not getting that emotional engagement. They're not seeing the thrust and the parry that they need. So have your new employees do that. As I told you earlier, cold calling builds courage. And poor cold calling is a function of a lack of preparation. And I've just told you how to prepare. The 4 B's: belief, bold claim, brevity, bulking. There you go. Tested my memory there. All right. So how long did we take? 35 minutes about cold calling. Look, I'm going to do a masterclass on sales and cold calling. So watch out for that. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. Make sure that today, it's early. It's 1:30 East Coast time. Time to make 25 cold calls. Get a list. You've got a list somewhere. Call them. Some dead prospects that you haven't spoken to for a long time. They'll have forgotten about you. That's cold. It's cold as ice. Call those people. There's a bar of gold in there somewhere. You just got to make those calls and you'll become better and better at it. So good luck with that. Hey, if you need any help, right, you can call me. You can see the banner there. Let me put up this slide. Yeah, you can see my telephone number there, and speaktomick.com will take you to my calendar if you want to talk about building your sales skills, your sales team sales skills, building your leadership capability to drive sales, the ability to scale sales for your business so you have magnificent revenues. I'm your guy. I'm the growth guy. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.